Now, when we look at the next, that second sacrament, which we brought up, that sacrament of confirmation. What exactly is confirmation? The sacrament of confirmation is one of those, is that, as I said, that third sacrament, that final sacrament of initiation in the church. It's the one that we would typically receive, you know, as Catholics, you know, and as about 11 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old. A lot of times, unfortunately, it's also seen somewhat as a rite of passage, a type of 8th grade graduation type thing. That's not what it should be. It should be something that the children want to receive as a true gift from God. It shouldn't just be something that they're checking the boxes off and doing just because their mom, their dad told them about. It should be really truly something that the children want to receive. The sacrament of confirmation is necessary for that completion of baptismal grace, according to the Catechism. It's by that sacrament of confirmation that the baptized are more perfectly bound to the church and are enriched with a special strength of the Holy Spirit. And because of that additional, you know, I guess you say, boost of the Holy Spirit, they are considered to be true witnesses of Christ, more strictly obliged to spread and defend the faith by word and by deed. They're asked by the church to, in some ways, be a little bit more of an adult in the church, to not just be brought into the church, but to go out into the world, to spread the faith, to minister to others, to literally be those true witnesses of their actions to their friends, possibly their family members, you know, others around them that they interact with at school, those who are there in whatever way they need to. That seal of the Holy Spirit, which they receive, brings them that strength which they need to continue to grow in their faith. In confirmation, you know, we're marked again with the grace of God on our souls. It's another one of those marks which can't be erased. It can't be done again. It's similar in that sense to baptism. With this mark, we're asked to be, you know, to really truly go out and spread the mission of the church to others. It's also a confirming, hence the name of the sacrament, a confirming of our faith and those teachings of the church which we are asked to believe and asked to, you know, responsibly share with others. Now, in the Latin Rite, which many of us, if not almost all of us, have been baptized in, this sacrament is celebrated separate from baptism. In the Eastern rites of the church, typically the infant is brought to the church and baptism is done. They'll also receive the sacrament of confirmation, and they'll also receive the third sacrament of initiation. They'll receive a tiny piece of the Eucharist in the Eastern Rite. So they receive actually as infants all three of the sacraments of initiation. So they're actually fully initiated into the church in the Eastern Rite at their baptism, or the day of their baptism, while they are three completely separate sacraments for the children to receive. For us in the Latin Rite, before the person receives confirmation, they will also renew their baptismal vows. That's one of the differences here, is that the child or the young adult receiving confirmation will make those baptismal promises which their parents initially made for them. One of the things that's interesting is when we baptize a sort of I guess it's sort of a child. They're not really an adult. They're considered sort of an adult in the church as long as they're, remember, 7 or 8 years old in the church, if I remember correctly. typically if they haven't been baptized, canon law tells us that they would be baptized and then confirmed at the age of even 7, whereas every church is a little bit different. A lot of times it makes it kind of odd. I know Father John sometimes will say, just go ahead and do the baptism, and we'll do confirmation here a little bit later when they can do that with the rest of their class. Other churches, if the child's 7 years old and they want to come into the church with their family, they're automatically baptized and confirmed at that time. I'd say canon law says you're supposed to do it that way. Sometimes it's not always done that way. The typical minister, the standard minister for the sacrament of confirmation is the bishop. Priests can do that, can administer the sacrament of confirmation at certain times. The bishop typically would have to give permission or delegation to a priest to administer the sacrament of confirmation for someone who has already been baptized. If the person has not been baptized, or if they're entering the church from another faith and they have been baptized, then I could, as a priest, receive them into the church, into the Catholic Church, and then confirm them right away. It's typically the way it's done. I've done that quite a few times. Just a few weeks ago, Father John and I confirmed the children in the parish. Bishop Burns was originally supposed to be scheduled to come, but he couldn't make all 6 of our confirmation ceremonies and confirmation rites. So he gave us delegation to go ahead and confirm the children, which was an interesting thing to do. I hadn't done the confirmation rite in that way before, so it was actually kind of fun to be able to do the confirmation there. A couple of things that you have to remember about the sacrament of confirmation. What are the parts of it? First thing is there's a laying on of hands. These days, the laying on of hands is kind of it's more of a laying over your hand, putting your hand up over raising your hands, because no one's really touching everyone right now. There was actually some debate as to whether or not we had to use our thumb, because in all the rituals, it says with your thumb, you make this sign of the cross on a person's forehead with chrism. It had to go actually to one of the congregations in Rome to ask, could we use another instrument, and instead of using just our thumb. In the Eastern rites, they use cotton swabs on a regular basis for confirmation. So the Latin Church finally said, okay, yeah, I guess you can go ahead and use a Q-tip if you want to make other people feel comfortable. That's what we did a couple of weeks ago. We were using Q-tips to administer the sign of the cross in the forehead. When you're doing that, the priest, or at least the bishop typically would say as he's doing that, be sealed with the gift of the Holy Spirit. The words are important. The words are very much important. They're part of that rite. If for some reason the words aren't said properly, the sacrament is not administered. The same thing with baptism. If you don't say, I baptize you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, that sacrament is not administered properly. Now, what are some of the effects of confirmation? From confirmation, the sacrament roots us more deeply into the church. It unites us more firmly with Christ. It increases those gifts of the Holy Spirit in us. It bonds us more closely with the church, of course, and it gives us that special strength of the Holy Spirit to spread and to defend the faith to others. Now, I said earlier, what happens when the sacraments are not administered properly? Well, we've had some problems, as I said. it can cause some major problems, actually. Just as a hint, if for some reason someone's not already baptized, the rest of the sacraments which they thought they received, they didn't. We had, there have been a couple of priests, actually, men who thought they were baptized. They looked back, saw a video, their baptisms were recorded. The person who did their baptism didn't use the Trinitarian form, or they didn't use the proper words. One of them actually was unfortunately baptized by someone here in the Dallas diocese. He was a priest. He's a priest for the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City. When he looked back at the video that he had, he heard in that case it was a deacon say, "We baptize you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit." Some of us in here, as Americans in English would say, "What's the difference between I baptize you and we baptize you?" Well, it's not the group or the church, not the group of people there present baptizing. It's Christ baptizing is the way we understand it. And in terms of the priest or the minister is acting in the person of Christ with that. So it's not we, it is a singular person. It is I baptize you. What happened? The bishop had to look back and see all the various sacraments that he had done and he'd administered before. And the baptisms that he'd done, fine. As I said, anyone can baptize. But they had to look back and say, okay, how about the sacraments of marriage? They had to look at those. Had he confirmed anyone? Well, if you haven't received confirmation, if he wasn't properly ordained, he couldn't administer confirmation to other people. There were a lot of things that had to be looked at and seen and reviewed to see what happened. Once he reported to his bishop that he had not been baptized, the bishop said, "Okay, you're not going to serve as a priest anymore right now. Let's make time. Let's get you baptized, and then I'll ordain you again. I'll baptize you. I'll let you receive First Communion. I'll confirm you. I'll reordain you as a deacon. I'll reordain you as a priest." He had to go through all of that again. Thank God he didn't have to go back to the seminary for another 7 years. But there are repercussions for not having baptism done right. So we have to watch out for that. Just as a little heads up, the other day, whenever I was doing some of the confirmations, one of the ceremonies, I was going, wait a minute, did I say the words just right? I had that little inkling in the back of my mind, and all through the night, it just kept going. I talked with Father John about that the next morning. I said, I know exactly who it was. He said, has it been bugging you? I said, it's been bugging me all night long. It bugged me. It started right almost exactly as they left, as they stepped away. He goes, if that's the case, you have your doubts, let's go ahead and bring her back over and confirm her. Just to we do a conditional confirmation. In that case, we can do a conditional confirmation. We can do a conditional baptism, is what we'd end up doing. The words we would say is, if you have not already been baptized, or if you have not already been confirmed, and then administer the sacrament. It was safer to do it that way than to say, yes, you have been confirmed, when they weren't. The student actually looked at me and she said, you said those words to me last night. I said, I think I did, but I had that small doubt. I want to make sure that you are confirmed. It didn't take much time. It was worth the few minutes that it took to do everything, and just to make sure that everything happened right. As I said, they just aren't rites of passage that act like graduation. They really do something for us. They give us that help and that grace of the Holy Spirit, which we all need in this life, to help us to continue to keep us closer to God, We also have to remember one other thing. Our learning of the faith, our growing in faith can't just stop at confirmation. It has to continue on. We have to continue to grow in our faith. We can't just, as adults, we don't just stop learning once we turn 18. We continue to learn all throughout our lives. The same thing should be about, true about our faith. We need to continue to learn all throughout our lives, growing deeper and deeper in our faith, letting God continue to help us to grow, knowing that our confirmation, yes, does make us a full member of the church, but it doesn't mean that we can't learn more. The Pope learns more each and every day. He looks at his faith and tries to grow each and every day in his faith. Father John and I do also. It's not something that we take lightly. We should all continue to let God work in our lives and through us so that we can be better Catholics.